to see and hear. Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for joining us for our last Entrepreneur Speaker Series of the semester. I am Shanika Turner. I am an assistant professor of business administration here at Georgia Highlands College. I will be the moderator for this series. At any time, please feel free to post any questions in the chat or send them directly to me. Um, there is a quote from Steve Jobs who said, "Your work is going to fill a large part of your life. And the only way to truly be satisfied is to do what you believe and to do great work. And the only way to do great work is to do what you love." That was said again, that was said by Steve Jobs. And also in the article from Harvard Business School, it was stated that passion is the fuel that entrepreneurs need to keep going. Research shows that passion is a key predictor of entrepreneurs' creativity, their persistence, and venture performance. So in other words, the more passionate the entrepreneur, the more likely they are to succeed. And our speaker has definitely been successful in his career. As a proud Georgia native, the highlight of Cade Joiner's career has been founding, growing, and advising more than a dozen different businesses in his home state. 1 year after earning a BBA in marketing from the University of Georgia in 2001, Cade Joiner founded Shredx Secure Document Destruction, which is now the largest independent shredding company in the Southeast. He is also a strategic partner at Brookwell Capital, raising private capital for businesses across the country, and sits on the board of several startups around the state. In 2020, Cade was named as a member of the Board of Regents overseeing the University System of Georgia. The year prior, he was named the co-chairman of Georgians First Commission, a group of business owners and executives tasked with advising the governor on ways to improve small businesses in the state and cut government red tape. He also serves the business community as the chairman of the National Federation of Independent Business of Georgia, an organization with 8,000 member businesses across the state. He serves as a board member for the UGA Entrepreneurship Program, the UGA Foundation, and the Georgia Workforce Development Board. The University of Georgia named him as one of the 40 most distinguished UGA graduates under the age of 40. He resides in Brookhaven with his wife, Katie, and two sons, Cade Jr. and Walker. And we are more than honored to have him here to speak with you today. And so, Regent Cade Joiner, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you so much for the kind remarks, Shanika, and appreciate the invitation to be with you. Also, thank you to Dana Nichols, your interim president, for being with us today. Certainly appreciate her time as well. So let me give you a little bit of an overview of what I want to talk to you about. I'm going to try to keep it to 30 minutes, and then we'll open the floor up to any questions you may have. But first, I'm going to start off, and I'm going to give you a very key piece of advice. So if you don't hear anything today, hear the very first thing I'm going to tell you here in a few minutes, and that is the 3 keys to becoming a successful entrepreneur. And that comes from over 20 years of experience. Then I'll tell you a little about my background, what I've done, and elaborate a little more on what Shanika just told you. And then I'm going to stick with 5 key points that I've learned about being an entrepreneur. The first is planning. The second is use of time. The third is habits. The fourth is relationships. And the 5th is maintenance and general advice. And then again, we'll open the floor to any questions. So back to the 3 key things to being a successful entrepreneur. And this is very formulaic. This is things that I have continued to see in my business career. But the very first thing an entrepreneur has to do is solve a problem. You could walk out of the classroom today and you will not find any shortage of problems. There are problems everywhere. How do you find problems? Well, you listen to people. I'll tell you a problem that I have. I absolutely hate to cut my own grass. I hate it with a passion. I bought this fancy lawnmower when we first bought our house, and I thought it was going to be something I would enjoy. But about 2 months into it, I said, enough of this. So I hired a guy to come cut my grass twice a month, and it has worked absolutely great. I had a problem. He built a business around that problem, cutting people's lawns. So the very first thing to being a successful entrepreneur is find a problem to solve. The second step in that process is to add and create value. Mike Mallon, who is my landscaper, adds a ton of value by coming to my house every other week and cutting my grass. That gives me time to work on my businesses, time to be with my family, and he adds a tremendous amount of value by solving that problem. And that's the second step. And the third step to becoming a very successful entrepreneur in your career is learn how to sell. That is something that you won't read a lot about in your college textbooks, but that is a skill I think that will carry you a long way. It doesn't matter if you're selling paper shredding or you're selling yourself to a future employer. Learn how to sell. And it is a skill. It truly, truly is. And there's lots of times there's been a bad name given to people who's in sales, but it is a very highly developed skill. Reminds me of the other day, I had to buy a mattress for my son. He just turned 3 years old. So we moved him into the big boy bed and we went to Mattress Firm to buy a mattress. And the guy walked in the door and he immediately comes right to me and tries to sell me a mattress, just gets all up in my face. And it really turned me off to the process. And it reminded me that there's highly skilled salespeople and poorly skilled salespeople. And my advice to you would be learn how to sell either through a mentor or through a job while you're in college, but learn those skills and become a highly skilled salesperson. Again, the key point I want to make before I launch into anything else is solve a problem by adding value and learn to sell. If you can walk out of here today with those three pieces of advice, I think you'll be better served in your entrepreneurial journey. Well, let me tell you a little about myself and how I sort of started out. I grew up in Griffin, small town about 45 miles south of downtown Atlanta. My sister is 6 years older than me, and she would babysit in the neighborhood. She would go out and babysit all the neighborhood kids and come home with a wad of cash. So I was, 9 or 8 or 9 at the time. And I asked my dad, I said, how can I, go out and make money like my sister? And he said, well, son, you're just a little too young, to go do anything. And so I thought about it. And a couple of weeks later, there was an ad in my local newspaper, the Griffin Daily News. And it was a big ad and it said, junior newspaper carriers wanted. I took it to my dad and I said, Dad, here's a chance for me to make some money. I want to be a junior newspaper carrier. He said, this is all fine and good, son. He said, but look at the bottom. It says you have to be 12 years old to have a paper route. And I said, oh my gosh, I was just crushed. I said, well, will you call him anyway? And he did. And the circulation manager from the Griffin Daily News came out to my house and interviewed me. Short story is I got the paper route, but what I didn't know is at the time my dad pulled him aside and said, give my son this paper route so he can learn some responsibility and how to run a business. And I'll guarantee you those papers get delivered every day. I was 9 years old at the time and I kept that paper route till I graduated from high school. And I learned a lot of great business lessons. It's something to go knock on the door when you're a 10-year-old kid and collect from people, to balance your own books. And the way the paper route's set up is you actually purchase the papers from the local delivery office and then you sell them to the end user. So I learned how to sell. I learned how to go door to door, and I got out of my comfort zone, and that helped me sort of learn some entrepreneurial skills at a really, really early age. I ultimately hired other kids to help me deliver the papers. I had 600 and something newspapers at one point, and had other kids. So it was just a great learning experience on how to manage, how to sell, how to balance your books. And at such a young age, it sort of imprinted on my mind. Then I got to the University of Georgia. My parents gave me, I think at the time it was like $100 a month spending money, which I didn't think was enough. It was certainly a lot. It's not a lot of money now. It certainly was not a lot of money 20 years ago either. And so I looked on campus, what was a problem that folks were having. And at the time, University of Georgia had just started to get good at football again. They had had a pretty bad period in the late 90s, and we're just starting to peak again. And I realized that, football tickets were really in demand. So I said, how can I get my hands on some football tickets to sell to other students? I started a little ticket business on campus. I went to the international dorm and found that there were a lot of students who did not like American football. They liked European football, and I recruited them to go buy tickets and would buy them from them, and had quite a collection at the end of the day, and would go sell them to other students. And so that was my little business. It paid for my spending money. And then was able to get through, but learned a lot and took a lot of those same lessons with the paper route of how to sell and how to run a business. Then I graduated from the University of Georgia in 2001, had an opportunity to go to Washington, D.C., had done some work for George W. Bush when he was a candidate, and had a chance to go up there and work. I got up there, I graduated in, I think it was May or June, and I started right after the July 4th holiday. So I had a very quick turnaround, and got up there, was sort of living the dream of doing what I wanted to do, or at least that was kind of what I thought. and got kind of tired of it pretty quickly and realized that was not something I wanted to spend the rest of my life doing. So I would go to, I lived out in rural Maryland at the time, and I would go to Annapolis to the bookstore, to the Barnes and Noble there right next to the Annapolis Mall, and read books during the weekend when I had time. And I found a book one day. It was Entrepreneur Magazine. It was about the top 20 businesses in the world different entrepreneurs had created. And one of the stories was about a gentleman named Greg Brophy in Hamilton, Ontario. And he had created a company called Shredit International. They were in Canada. They were focusing just on Canada, and they were shredding documents for banks, hospitals, CPA firms, and anybody who had a lot of confidential information. This was way before the digital age we're in right now. So it was a certain large amount of paper coming out of all these type offices. So I did what any good entrepreneur would do. I went to the cafe and I got a napkin and borrowed a pen from the receptionist there, and then started taking notes on this book. And I took the notes back to my apartment and I wrote a business plan. I said, I could do what Greg Brophy is doing in Hamilton, Ontario. I can certainly do that in Atlanta, Georgia, where I'm from. And I wrote the business plan, and I stuck it in a desk drawer. I put it in a desk drawer, and I kind of really had forgotten about it. And so I went on working in DC. It got colder. You know, I'm a Southern guy, I like warm weather. And one day I had just had a series of really bad days, and I was really missing home. And I remember it like it was yesterday, and this is honest to God truth of what happened. I was on the metro, which is the subway going into DC, and I said a prayer to God. I said, God, I need you to give me a sign. I'm not happy. I want you to show me what the next thing I need to do with my life is. And so I get off the metro there at Capitol South, which is the big, right next to the Capitol, and there's this massive escalator. So I'm said this prayer and I'm riding the escalator up, and I get to the very top of the escalator, and one of Greg Brophy's shredding trucks was sitting there. I said, wow, that is the biggest sign I've ever seen in my entire life. And I guess I need to get that business plan out and move back to Atlanta. And I remember I went in the office and I called my dad and I said, I'm moving home. He said, why in the world are you doing that? And I said, I'm going to start a shredding company. He said, what in the heck is a shredding? What is this? What are you doing? And he said, you're happy. You're in Washington. This is all you've ever wanted to do with your life. And I said, Dad, I'm going to do this on faith. I saw this sign and I prayed about it. And he said, okay, well, I'm going to be behind you and I'll support you. So I put in my notice at work, and I had some money saved for my job, and I went back to Griffin, Georgia, and I moved in with my parents. I'd been living in DC on my own and going to parties and having a great time at night, and moved back into my childhood bedroom. And that was a humbling experience, but I wouldn't trade that for anything, because that, gave me the humility I needed to succeed at that level. And I'm not going to lie to y'all, it was a very tough journey from that moving into that bedroom to where I am now. But the lessons that I learned have propelled me and helped me become a better person, a better husband, a better father, and a better businessman. So, but very humbling to come back, and it took a lot of shoe leather early in the start of the business. I remember the first few weeks were just brutal. I went to go see people that I knew and thought would help me, and didn't have time for me or wouldn't answer my calls, and but I just kept going. I just kept going. It's not that you're going to get knocked down in the process. It's that you got to get back up, and you're going to get knocked down, and you're going to get knocked down again. And that's the only thing I can tell you with any business is you're going to get hit in the mouth. It's just part of it. You're going to have a bad day. You're going to have a series of bad days and months and even weeks and years sometimes, but it's just getting up and consistently doing the work every single day that will get you to the finish line. So fast forward to about 2010, we grew the business pretty significantly. And I went to my dad, who at the time was working for me. And I just said, Dad, I think now's the time that I should go focus on some other projects. So we hired my uncle as an operations manager and sort of beefed the staff up a little bit. And I kind of exited stage left and left to go work on some other projects. And I'm happy to say that, 12 years later, 11 years later, Shredx is still doing great, still growing, still got a great staff. And a lot of the same folks that were there are still working with us. But that's a testament to my dad and uncle and their leadership. And, with our business, we put our employees first. I mean, they are like family. I've been in all their homes, and they've been in mine. And I think that's one reason why we had such great continuation. We just treat folks the way you want to be treated. I got some great advice from a good friend of mine the other day, and he said, and he's very successful. And I said, what have you done in your life that's propelled you to this level of success? And he said, I am nice to everybody and I work hard every day. And that's all he said. I thought there's some great wisdom in the simplicity of that, is just be nice to people and work hard every day. And it's consistency over time, which is what will get you to the top. So I want to talk about some ideas that I've kind of come across and some themes that I've had happen to me and lessons I've learned. The first thing is planning. I can't say enough about planning. If you don't plan your day, you're going to waste time. And at the end of the day, time is your most valuable asset you have. You cannot create more. You and Bill Gates and all the titans of industry have the exact same number of minutes and hours in every single day. So every day, I encourage you to write down your outcomes, not your goals. There's going to be a lot of people out there that are going to say, write down your goals. And maybe that's good for some people. But what I like to do is write down the outcome I want to achieve. I think that keeps me a lot more focused. I will say, I want to add X number of dollars to the bottom line today. I say, I put it out there as an achievable outcome, not necessarily as a goal. You would say in your world as a student, you'd say, today I want to study for 45 minutes and I'm going to make an A on my marketing exam. So you put it down as an outcome, not just a goal. Plan your day before it starts. My goodness, that is so important. The night before, take 5 minutes to look at your calendar. What do you have to do that day? And try to fill up the white spots with things that are important that you need to get done. So plan your day every day the night before. Be accountable to someone else, not just yourself. We are so easy on ourselves. You've got to have someone around you that demands accountability. You can do that in the form of accountability partner or someone you study with, someone that will call and check in and keep you focused on those outcomes. Because if you leave it up to yourself, we're human beings. I like to watch Netflix and go on walks, play with my kids. But if I've got a buddy that's calling and said, hey, Cade, have you done this? I don't want to tell him no when he calls. So focus on having that accountability partner. And again, on planning, the 3 things: write down your outcomes every day, plan your day before it starts, and be accountable to somebody else. The second theme I want to hit is time. Again, I just said it, but time is the most important asset that you have. You are a combination of the 5 people you spend the most time with. I would guarantee you students, that your 5 closest friends on campus, probably if you averaged their GPAs together, would be pretty close to your GPA. I would almost guarantee you that. You are a combination of those people. So select those people very, very carefully. I don't like negative people. I don't want to be with people who create drama. I want to be with people who create positive energy and move forward and bring me up and build my family up. And that's what I would suggest for you. Well, how do you do that? One of the greatest things that I've experienced in my life is having mentors, having successful people who have been where I want to go. I don't want to ask people who are going where I want to go. I want to ask people who are already there. How did you get there? How did you overcome these obstacles? My mentor is a guy named Billy Lovett. He's a 76-year-old businessman in Buckhead, and he has done everything under the sun in business. But the one thing he consistently says is treat everybody with respect, treat everybody kindly, do things the right way. And being around him has had tremendous value to me. Just helping him and learning from him and partnering with him on deals and other things has just paid a tremendous amount of value. Well, I can hear you now. You're saying, well, I don't have a Billy Lovett in my life. Well, the good thing is there's a lot of free things out there that you can do and substitute for that mentor. You've got podcasts. You can learn about anything under the sun if you go to Apple iTunes and just type it in. I don't care what you're interested in business or life or athletics or anything. It's there. And there's an expert somewhere in the world that probably talks about it 30 minutes a day. So find some really quality podcasts that can help you. And those are all available free. Books. Oh my gosh, there's millions of books out there. Find an author you want to emulate where they are and buy their book, or check their book out from the library or read it online. But if you want to be CEO of a business, there are hundreds of books by the best CEOs in the world, and it's all available at your fingertips. All you have to do is invest the time to do it. And the final thing is masterminds. So I have a group of guys, and this kind of goes back to accountability, that are all on the same journey I am. We get together for lunch or dinner, and we talk about what we're trying to do and accomplish, and we hold each other accountable. And it's good to keep people around you that are on the same journey, because that reminds you of where you're headed. And that comes from a book by Napoleon Hill called Think and Grow Rich. If you've not read that, I suggest you do, because it's a very, very powerful book. In the last couple of years, I've had the joy of spending some time with some billionaires, some people names you probably would recognize, just in passing, some socially and some business and others. But I've taken away some key points from these meetings I want to share with you. This is my sort of analysis of spending time with these guys. There are 4 takeaways from what I can tell you with my interactions with these guys. And these are guys on the Forbes list. You don't get much more successful than being on the Forbes richest list in this country. The first thing is preparation. When you meet and talk with these people, they are very prepared to have those conversations. They do the work on the front end, and they do not waste their time. They are ready to have the conversation, ask the questions, and move on. So they are very prepared in interaction. The second thing I've noticed is the depth of their questions. They ask very deep, probing, thoughtful, intellectual questions, not surface level questions about projects, but they ask very deep, thoughtful questions. The third is the use of time. I never will forget, I called on a gentleman a few years ago in Atlanta who's a very successful businessman, and I was dealing with his assistant, and she said, I need you to be there at 1:07. I said, 1:07? This is like a typo, right? You 1 o'clock, 1:15, 1:30. No, he wants to see you at 1:07. That was how scheduled this guy was with his time, and how serious he was about not wasting time, is that he wanted to meet me from 1:07 to 1:20. It would be 13 minutes to talk to him. And he's a billionaire, multi-billionaire, in fact. So that just further kind of echoed the point about use of your time. And the final thing is, you can't have financial freedom in the long run if you don't have discipline. And all of these gentlemen that I've dealt with in the last several years are very disciplined. If you want to know more about that, think about all the pro athletes that are out there that get these multi-million-dollar contracts right out of college. They play a few years in the NBA or NFL, and then 2 or 3 years later, they lose everything. So they don't have the long-term financial discipline. So that's just something else I noticed with these gentlemen, is they were all very financially disciplined. Again, they were all very prepared. They all asked very deep questions. They all used time consistently well, and they all had financial discipline. Again, I hate to harp on it, but this is probably one of the more important topics, is we cannot make any more time. You literally have the same 24 hours as I do, as Shanika does, as anybody on the call does. But if you can say, I'm gonna give you some statistics. This is pretty staggering. I never really thought about this till I broke it down. But if you can save 15 minutes a day, if you can just save 15 minutes a day, that is 91 hours a year, or 2.25 work weeks. And just saving 15 minutes a day in your productivity. If you can save 30 minutes, that's 182 hours, or 4.5 work weeks. Or if you can save a whole hour a day, that is 365 hours a year, or 9.125 work weeks a year. So look for ways to save time when you can. Don't waste it. I promise, the older you get, the more you'll value it. At 20 or 25, you probably think I've got all the time in the world. You don't. Eventually it will come to an end. So value that time, and spend. Another thing you can do every day is what I love to do, is spend some time with quiet reflection and meditation. I think mental health is something in this country that has not, it's just kind of been ignored for a long time, but spending that quiet time, reflecting, praying, whatever you do to center yourself is so important. I don't think you can have anything without having that sort of inner peace and dialogue. The third thing I want to touch on is habits. Becoming successful in life is simple to do, but it's also simple not to do. And it comes down to the bottom line of habits, of what you do every single day of your life. We do the same stuff every day. I get up, I brush my teeth, I go outside for a walk, I take my kids to school. It's all based on habit. 80, 90% of what you do from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. at night is based on your habits. How you do the little things is how you're going to do everything. I can see it all the time. I can see people who cut corners on little things, and that tells me that likely they're to cut corners on big things as well. Good habits over time. 2 books I would recommend about habits is The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. He was the youngest editor in history of Success magazine, and he was in his 30s when he did it. His father was a football coach, and he talks a lot about the habits that his dad ingrained in him when he was 12 and 13 years old, and how that helped him be a successful business person. It's incredible. It's on Audible. It's a short listen, about 3 or 4 hours. I would highly recommend it. Another book is called The Slight Edge by Olson. I think it's just in print. I don't believe it's on Audible, but it's another book as well. So I'd recommend those 2 books. The fourth thing I want to touch on is relationships. Oh my gosh, I cannot say enough about having positive people around you. and how much you should value relationships. Spend time helping other people who will bring you up, positive people, and be around people you trust. A good partner can make or break a business, and make sure that you have similar values with every partner in your life, be it a spouse, a business owner, or anybody else. Make sure you have similar values, because a lot of breakups in life, in business, and in personal lives are based on incongruency in values. So I would recommend having similar values with anybody you go into business with. And my wife told me to tell you, anybody you marry to, that is very, very important. And I really outkicked my coverage on that one. So I married way above my pay grade, but she does great. And this is a big part of everything we do with our businesses. So I want to talk about collaboration too. I just want to touch on that. When you're in the academic world and you're taking a test, if I look over at Shanika's paper and I grab her answer, the professor is going to come over and tear up my test and give me a 0 and kick me out of class. But in the business world, collaboration is important. In the academic world, you're penalized, but in the business world, you're penalized for not collaborating. So learn to collaborate with other people. I didn't come up with the concept of shredding paper. I took another gentleman's concept and I added value to that concept, and I took it to a different marketplace. I didn't do that. That's a form of collaboration. Always do the right thing. Integrity is doing what you say you will do or cleaning it up when you don't. I won't repeat that because that's important. Integrity is doing what you say you're going to do or cleaning it up when you don't. Act with integrity in business. Can you get by without integrity? Absolutely, you can. And you can cut corners and you can do things the wrong way. But trust me, guys, it will catch up with you in the long run. Treat everyone fairly. Do the right thing. It is just the only way to live your life. It is the only way to live in business. So again, integrity in your relationships, trust in your relationships, and value in your relationships. Do the best you can with a sense of urgency. My dad used to tell me when I was a kid, act like you're fighting a fire. That's how you work. You're like you're fighting a fire. And sometimes I think back, am I fighting a fire today, or am I just kind of sitting around? Act with urgency and reject average. Guys, it is so easy to just be average. It is. I mean, you are in school, you're putting yourself through school, you're getting a degree, so you are not average. You're already by definition not average. But do your best to not fall into average later in your life and just get by. Always do the best you can and always do it with a sense of urgency. Show others you care. Say, please, thank you. I support you. It is the little small things that people want to hear. They don't always, want a gigantic pay raise. Maybe they do in some cases, but just telling people you appreciate them, you support them, you thank them. That is one thing we do every day at Shredx. When the guys leave and they clock out, we say, thank you for your work. Thank you for being here. We appreciate you. And that has to be sincere. It can't just be something you say. Keep a close group of advisors you trust and listen to them. I got 4 or 5 people in my life whose opinions carry a tremendous amount of weight. I'm going through some business situations now and I need very good guidance. And when those 4 or 5 people all tell me the same thing, guess what? That's what I do, because I have a sense of trust with them. I know they have my best interest in mind. So build that kitchen cabinet, that mastermind of people around you that you can bounce ideas off of. The higher you go, the harder the conversations become. You're going to have to be willing in business and in life to have tough, difficult conversations, having that core group around you to remind you, close the door and tell you you're acting like an idiot. Having people like that in your life are very, very valuable. So build that team around you, and not only build that team for yourself, build it for other people. Be a member of someone else's team, of someone else's is mastermind. And the last points I want to make before we kind of open up the questions, just some general advice and some sort of maintenance things on business. Perform preventative maintenance on your life. Fix small problems before they become big ones, because small problems are a lot cheaper to deal with. We at Shredx, I think we got 15 trucks now. We're buying and selling them constantly. But if we don't change the oil or replace the brake pads or the rotors or the basic stuff we do, the PM, the preventative maintenance, those trucks aren't going to run. We're not going to be able to service our customers, and we're not going to be able to, keep our business running. It's the same with your life. If you see small cracks in the foundation, deal with them now, be it in a relationship or with your academic career. Deal with them head on. It's a lot easier in the early phases than it is to once stuff kind of sets in. So do the preventative maintenance on your life. There's a big difference between success and excellence. Success is getting there. There are a lot of people who get there. There are a lot of people who climb the top of the ladder, but excellence is staying there consistently over time. So don't just shoot to be successful in your career and in your relationships. Shoot for that level of excellence, which again is staying there. Try to become a master of your craft. I don't care if it's selling or you're building businesses or you're building houses or you're a CPA. You want to become the master of your craft, the best you can be. You want to be sought after as an authority figure in your area, and that will help you grow. And you do that by self-study and surrounding yourself with people and never stop learning. I read constantly. That's my entertainment. I enjoy doing that. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I go for a walk every morning and do that. But I'm shooting to get better with my skills. I want to be a better business owner. I want to be a better investor. I want to be a better entrepreneur. One book can make you millions of dollars. It's really true. Reading one book can change the trajectory of your life. I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad right before I moved back to Atlanta to start the business. If I had not read that book, I'd probably still be up there. One book can change the trajectory of your life. Take the time to invest in yourself. There's nothing more important you can invest in than yourself. You are the CEO of your own life. You're responsible for your efforts and outcomes. If you were CEO and you had a board of directors, would they give you a raise or keep you as CEO, or would they fire you? You're the CEO. At the end of the day, it all rises and falls on your shoulders. Don't blame others. You're responsible for your own self. Remember that. You are the CEO. You're sitting in the big seat. A couple other pieces of advice I'll give you just in general, and then we'll open it up to questions. Always glad to answer any questions, and also want to hear about what y'all are working on. But something I've learned along the way, don't compare yourself to other people. Comparison is the thief of happiness. I cannot say that enough. Run your own race, as my wife loves to say. That's an Oprahism, but run your own race. You are not competing with anybody but yourself. I'm a big college football fan, and Nick Saban has won, I forget how many national championships, but it's a lot at Alabama. And one thing he tells his players is we're competing against ourselves on every play, and we're competing for perfection. We're not competing with the guys across the way over there. We're competing against ourselves. And that's how your life is. It's running your own race, but don't compare yourself to others. That will rob you of your happiness. Enjoy what you have, the gifts you've been given, and use those to help other people. And the last thing I'll leave you with, and this is just very important, is give back and invest in the next generation. You're going to be around the dinner table one night with your family, and you're going to receive a call from somebody from Georgia Highlands College, and they're going to say, will you donate to our capital campaign? I hope the answer to that is yes, because that is something you can do to help people that are coming up. Always be willing to help. That's something that I try to do with everything I do, and answer the call, because there's going to be a call, literally and figuratively, in your life where you're going to have to rise to the occasion to help people. Do that and be a leader. So, but with that, I think I hit right at 30 minutes. And Shanika, I'm glad to open up for any questions people might have.
Yes, thank you so much. For just your amazing glimpse into your entrepreneur journey, and you gave some amazing advice. And I love that you talked about mentorship, and how important that is, because we're launching our mentorship program for our entrepreneurship pathway students. So I'm glad that you talked about how important that is. We do have some questions in the chat for you. The first question is, can you repeat what were the two books again that you
Yeah, be glad to. So
okay.
the first one is, let me make sure I got them exactly right here. Go back. Compound Effect by Darren Hardy is the first one. And let me see. Slight Edge by Olson.
And I will be sending the survey out after the event is over, and I will make sure that I put the names of those books in the survey. So for those
and Rich
that
Dad, Poor Dad. If you've not
yes.
read that book, I tell you what, outside of the Holy Bible itself, I don't know anything more that's been more responsible for my business success than that book. If you've not read it, go buy a copy of it today.
Yeah, that's a great book. Great book. Thank you. I'll put that in there so everyone can have those. Some more questions that we have is, what do you find most challenging about being an entrepreneur?
I'm a passionate guy. I don't know if you can tell that, but I'm very passionate, but balancing everything out. One thing I do love about it is I make it a point every day to pick my kids up from school and have dinner around the dinner table. And but it is challenging sometimes because you're pulled in a lot of different directions. But maintaining balance, that's something I struggle with. I work with. I talk to my mastermind. I talk to my mentors about. But maintaining those balance, because again, the relationships and the people you touch along the way are far more important. So keeping all that in balance, keeping out everything, as people say, all the balls in the air at once. But that's certainly a big challenge.
Awesome. A lot of questions coming in. How do you manage your time efficiently?
I optimize, automate, and outsource. I optimize my calendar, which is what we talked about. I automate any task I can automate, be it bill pay or anything that I can set up automatically where I don't think about, and I optimize it. I figure out the best way to possibly do that. I use a virtual assistant to help me do my schedule. It's not incredibly inexpensive, but it's worth it to me to have somebody to help do follow up. That works really well. But it's just like anything else. The more you practice good disciplines, the easier it gets. And you just kind of have to look at the whole piece of pie as 24 hours in a day. You're going to sleep 8, you're going to eat 2. How are you going to fill the remaining 14 hours? And you do that in a way that's effective, that helps you reach that outcome for the day you want to reach.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Someone wants to know if you could give more description of your business, Shredx, like
Yeah,
more,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah, so basically, it's a paper shredding and recycling company. We've got the big mobile shredding trucks that come onto your facility. You may have seen them in bank parking lots or hospitals, and we destroy all the documents that have sensitive information. We take that paper and recycle it. We also do film. We do product destruction. If companies have product that's ineffective or inefficient for whatever reason, we'll destroy that. A lot of clothing, a lot of medical devices and pill bottles that need to be destroyed, things that can't be landfilled. There are laws and rules that say you can't throw confidential information for patients or customers in the trash. In Georgia, there's serious penalties and fines if you do, and there's serious federal fines and penalties if you do. So people are very focused on that, especially in the medical and financial world. So 65% of our customer base is financial and medical, and then 35% is miscellaneous. But we've got about 3,000 accounts in Atlanta that we service on a scheduled basis, and then others all around the state. We go down to middle and south Georgia, up to north Georgia, to Dahlonega, over to the Alabama line, and over to Milledgeville and Augusta on the east side of the state. And it's a pretty simple business. It's very brick and mortar. It's not technical, but it's been a great business for my family, and I've enjoyed running it.
Awesome. Awesome. This question is from one of the entrepreneurship students, the one that are in the pathway. And the student asks, we have an assignment in class where we have to do a business pitch.
Right.
How would you go about, creating your pitch, and like, how long do you think that it would need to be in order to be a good pitch?
Well, I would say whatever the professor wants is probably best. But if I'm getting pitched for a business, my mentor Billy and I, we have a simple rule. We call it a one pager. It doesn't have to be exactly one page, but it could be 2 or 3. But it's bullet pointed, it's quick, and it gets right to the point. And I think if you're pitching a business and you're trying to get funding from a venture capitalist or an angel investor, you don't want to beat around the bush. You want to be very specific as what you need and what you want and what you're going to do with it. And when people get off in the weeds and they try to explain stuff in too much detail, I think that's when they get themselves in trouble. So my thing is, be efficient. If you're pitching an investor, if you're pitching a professor and they want a 5 slide deck, give them a 5 slide deck. And but that's kind of how I deal with it. Sort of, the high level 10,000 foot view in a 1-page document.
Awesome. How did you first select your employees?
Oh, that's a great question. Employees will make or break a company. I'm very fortunate in that my father was HR director of a pretty large mill in Thomaston, Georgia, where we used to live. So he had a tremendous amount of experience in hiring and firing, which was very, very helpful in the early process. Since we're handling secure documents, account numbers, social security numbers, all that, everyone has to be background checked. We can't have people with any problems in their background. They have to be able to pass a drug screening. That weeds out a lot of people. And then we just interview them and talk to them. It's been tough the last year with hiring. We've been very fortunate. We've hired a lot of former military, a lot of former firefighter, police officers, things like that. They can pass the background checks that we need them to pass. And but really, it's just people. It's blocking and tackling. It's talking to people, and trust your gut. If you get a bad feeling about somebody, maybe that's not the right person. Check references. Have conversations, and And it all comes down to human interaction.
Great. Great. Yeah, that's great. What strategies do you use for marketing your business?
We do a lot of digital ads, Google, Facebook, others. When we first got started, I had a lot of background in direct mail sales, and that was how we kind of started with postcards, which is a really efficient way, 20 years ago to reach large audiences. Now we've shifted more of that toward digital assets. But my main thing is marketing makes the phone ring and sales gets the business. So how do we make the phone ring? That's the question I ask every single day. How do we make the phone ring more times than it rang yesterday and more times than it rang last week? So it's creative. But what I'll tell you about marketing is you got to have a good mix. If you're stuck with one thing, think about this. So Facebook and Instagram went down yesterday. Think about all the money, not just lost by Facebook, but lost by people and businesses that just solely advertise on those platforms. If you were just out on Facebook advertising, your phone probably didn't ring yesterday. And so you've got to have a mix of a lot of different things. Again, it goes back to consistency and performance with what you're doing as a good or service, making sure you do things the right way. If you tell a customer you're going to do something, you follow through with that. And then repeat business is a big source of marketing for us. People that we've done business with in the past, they trust us, they know we're going to do the right thing, and they call us again when they need the service.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned Facebook and Instagram. As I was talking to my students yesterday, that was one of the things that I brought up about. There's a lot of businesses that do not have web pages, like you
Yeah.
mentioned, and how important that is to have that mix. So I'm glad you mentioned that. What is the most important message to communicate to your employees?
That we trust you, we value you, we're here to support you. We want to work with you, we want collaboration. It's not us against them. It's everybody's a family. We want to work for a common good. You let people know you appreciate them. That's the bottom line. People want to be listened to. We listen to our employees. If they've got a better way of doing things, we want to hear about it. We won't always do it, but just having an open line of communication. I think people will stay in jobs if they feel appreciated and respected and treated well. And we try to do that. I try to treat them like they're members of my family, and they are.
Do you find that creating that culture of family has worked, well for you in your businesses?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Nothing. And I've been on both sides of that. I've worked with businesses that are that way, and I've worked with businesses that are not that way, and that's the way to do it. You don't ever want that, us against them, management against employee kind of. That's a dangerous, toxic situation. You want to treat people with respect. It doesn't matter if they're, sweeping the floor, or if they're the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. You treat everyone with the same level of respect. Everyone adds value in their own way, and you just need to appreciate that.
Yes, totally agree. How do you decide on each day's priorities?
That's a great question. I tell you another tip I'll give you is something I started doing this. My wife works at Chick-fil-A corporate down in South Fulton, and Tim Tosopoulos is the CEO of Chick-fil-A. And one thing I took from a speech he gave was he takes time every quarter. He goes away and does a little thinking retreat for 24 hours. I started doing that a few years ago, and it's one of the most valuable things I do with my time. I just take a notebook and a pen, and I go to a buddy's cabin, or I go, somewhere I'm not going to be bothered for a full day, and I just write and I think, and I say, what can I do to improve on these goals that we have? And it's thinking. Every day I try to set aside some time to think. And I think that at the end of the day, the people that perform at a high level, they take that time to meditate quietly and to think and to focus on your priorities. They're not just going to pop on your calendar. They're going to have to come from your head, and you're going to have to, in your heart, and you're going to have to take that time, turn that cell phone off. I know it's tempting to scroll through, Instagram or whatever, but put it in the other room, take an old fashioned pen and pad, and write down what's important to you. You need to figure out what drives you, why you're getting out of bed, why you're working so hard to get that degree. And you need to focus your life on attaining that goal, but doing it in an ethical and upstanding way.
Yeah, thank you for that. These are great questions from our audience. What have you enjoyed most about starting your own company?
I love having the freedom of time to pick up my kids and to be with my family and to do fun things like this and to serve the state at various levels. It's not always been that way. They always say, the entrepreneur trades a 40-hour-a-week job to work all the time. And that is true in the beginning phases. If you're not willing to go all in, your chances of success are pretty slim. But the payout at the end of the day is that you get to control your own time. And to me, again, go back, that's more valuable than anything else in the world to me. I want to do things, affect change in a positive way. I've got 2 young boys, as you said in the introduction, and I love nothing more than to spend time with them and my wife. And to me, at the end of the day, that's the fulfillment I want. That's what drives me to do better.
Yeah. What are the qualities of a good entrepreneur?
Well, it's tough to say because you see a lot of qualities. I think you got to be willing to accept uncertainty and take risks. If you're somebody that gets really nervous and worried, maybe not the field for you. You can do it in a controlled environment and take risks. I tell people all the time, you don't have to quit your job to be an entrepreneur. You can start a side hustle, do things on the side and build up a business until you're there. Then you can quit. And when you've got the revenue to support you actually leaving your job. But I think the ability to deal with uncertainty, to collaborate, to work with others, faith in yourself. I bet on myself every day. I have to. I bet on myself. You know what? If I fail, it's on me. I want that to be the equation, though. I want that to be the equation. I don't want to put control in someone else's hands and wonder if they're going to do the right thing. I know what I'm capable of doing, but you've got to be able to put your faith in yourself and keep grinding. That consistency and doing good things over time. It's just like if you go to the gym one time, you're not going to notice it. But if you go to the gym every day for 2 or 3 months, you're going to notice it. And it's just doing it's the same thing that we've talked about. It's doing those little small things that are easy to do, Shanika, but they're also easy not to do.
You talked about, when you moved home, and it was a humbling experience moving back into your childhood home, and room. And you talked about, the first few weeks were really hard and trying to get started up. How long did it take you to find success? When you got to a point where you said, okay, I'm on my feet and I'm doing well. How long did it take you to get to that
It
point?
took 3 or 4 months to really get to a point where I felt like we were starting to make some traction. And success is good, consistent movement over time. And I've heard that from some folks in my life that you've got to give it time. Is again, you can't go to the gym and lift weights one day and expect to get a lot stronger. You're not going to. You've got to do these good, positive things and keep moving in that direction over time. So people who want this microwave success, it just doesn't happen that way unless you buy a winning lottery ticket and get really lucky. I mean, it doesn't happen that way, and that's so rare. You've got to do really good things over the long haul. It's like the picture of the iceberg. You see just the very tip top pointing out over the water, but you don't see the whole big base down below. And that's the good habits. That's the consistency. That's having positive people around you, and that's looking to improve every single day.
Hmm. I agree. What are you working on now? Are there some big projects or new businesses that you're looking to start? What is some things you're working on?
I do a lot of investing now. It's kind of freed me up from the business to invest in good projects. I do a lot of lending with hard money for real estate. I do my own real estate projects. We do small business lending with my mentor, Billy Lovett. I'm involved in a lot of projects, and it's called shiny object syndrome when you're an entrepreneur. You see another shiny object over there and you run to it. But I like to be challenged. I like new and different things. I'm not successful at everything I try by any means, but I always try to take away, learn from it, and just being around great people. I may read about something this afternoon and try to do it, but it's the experience, it's the value add, and it's the great people you get to be with and the relationships you get to build along the way. I want to be around positive people. I enjoy my service on the Board of Regents. That's the way I think I can affect change in a positive way. As someone who went to university system school and experienced what it was like to go through there and to be a part of that. So that's something I'm incredibly passionate about. But the great thing about it now is I get to follow my passions every single day, and I don't plan to change that.
I love that. I love that. Um, so just I always try to ask all the speakers is that the last question is if you could just leave us. I know you gave us 3 points that were amazing, but if you could just leave us with one lasting thing for our entrepreneur students, what would you tell them? What would it be?
Invest in yourself. Invest in yourself. Take the time now when you're young to be around positive people, read books, go to speakers. I mean, you're here today during your lunch hour. That tells me a lot about who you are and what you're trying to become. Do that. Invest in yourself and be around positive people. I can't tell you enough. You go today and ask your 5 best friends about their GPA and average it. I would assure you, you're going to be pretty close to that GPA, and that's going to show you I know what I'm talking about here. But find people that lift you up, invest in yourself, improve, Shanika, a little bit. You don't have to improve a lot, just a fraction of a percent every day. And you come back in a year and you're like, who am I? What have I become? I've become a lot better, a lot stronger, a lot smarter, a lot faster. And just do that. Focus every day on getting just a little, just a hair better. And over the course of your business career, you won't recognize yourself when you're done.
Wow. Wow, that was great. That was great advice. I mean, I just want to thank you
Of course.
again for speaking with us and just taking the time out of I know your busy schedule to take to sit down with us and talk about your entrepreneur journey and give us so many great gems and a lot of great advice. I want to thank everyone who is attending this speaker series. This is our last speaker for the semester. We will resume the speaker series next semester. You can always register at ess.highlands.edu. Also, next Friday on October 15th, many of our speakers from the past will be returning to GHC at our Charge into Leadership conference on our Cartersville campus. You should have probably received an email about that this morning as a reminder. And I'll also add that into our survey that I will be sending out after the event. So again, I just want to thank you, Cade, and I want to thank everyone who attended today. And we hope to see everyone at the conference next week. I hope everyone
Go do something great today, guys.
Yes.
Thank you for your time. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. I enjoyed it as well. I hope everyone has a wonderful, wonderful week. Thank you.